This is Pam Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Holly West of the Dead Groove Band and Zepparella. And this is our second interview, and we're going to talk about your upcoming EP, Rubicon. We're actually going to play some of this. We got 3 songs from this EP, and we're going to try to talk about all of them. But
Okay.
well, thank you for coming on the show again. How
Thank
have you? How
you.
have you been doing? How have you been?
Pretty good. Yeah, it's been a little while. Doing pretty good. We just dropped this new EP and we're starting to play some shows. So we're definitely staying busy around here and still touring with Zepparella and now a few more bands. So it's
That's
pretty fun.
awesome. So last time you recorded your album, you recorded that in Peru. Where do you record Rubicon?
Mhm. In Peru.
Oh,
We
you
went
did
back
it
to
again.
Peru. Yeah, yeah, we went back to Peru to record this one. That's kind of why we just did an EP because we went back and we wrote everything there and recorded there. So we ended up writing the 2 original songs and then recording Ace of Spades because we've been doing that live for a little while.
Oh, that's in your repertoire. You like to play that.
Yeah, we really like it. Yeah, we've been adding that to the show since the beginning. So we just decided, since people were asking if we had a recorded version of it, that we would go ahead and record it.
Well, that's cool. I mean, like it's cool to not, have that immediate feedback. And you've got an audience
Hmm.
favorite, and then
Yeah.
then say, "Oh yeah, let's give it to them so they can actually own it."
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So like, how has it been touring like in this kind of world? Last time we talked to you was like, we're still kind of in the COVID space. It's less so.
Yeah.
But is it hard being a touring band compared to what it used to be
No,
back
it's
in like
gotten a
the
lot
days?
better. It's
Got
definitely
better.
gotten better now. I feel like we're back on track, to be honest. I'm just recently started playing with a Soundgarden tribute as well.
Hmm.
So I actually have 9 shows this month between
Wow,
Dead Groove, Soundgarden, and Zeppelin. So I'm
wow.
doing good. I'm definitely back
You're
on
working,
track.
so you're not.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
working.
being a musician before, that was like a road musician. It was a big struggle during the lockdowns and the pandemic. Is like people had to like, well, how am I gonna connect with
Yeah,
an audience? And being in a
yeah.
live band, it's like me. I'm a sound producer, and I pretty much do everything myself. So I could easily go on Facebook and do like a jam because it's all
Mhm.
me. But when
Yeah,
you're with a
yeah,
band, it's like it's harder to do that. So like
yeah.
you guys are back in your element.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And people want to go see shows, they're really, they don't, no, I don't think anybody wants to go back to the pandemic. I mean,
No,
it was, it sucked, but it was also kind of relaxing in a way, because we didn't really have a lot to do. But I think a lot of people were just itching to get back on the road, especially musicians, because we were the ones that first lost our jobs because it's the
yeah,
entertainment industry. So things were getting shut down. We didn't have anywhere to go, and then we had to kind of put on this new thinking cap to figure out what the hell to do with our extra time.
yeah. So did
And
you guys just spend time writing, or did you just perfect your groove, or do other things?
I actually started working for some online publications. I'm also a writer, so I
Oh,
was
you
writing
you
for
went back
some.
to that.
Yeah, so I went kind of back to that. I started writing for some guitar magazines online and
Oh, cool.
started doing some videos for some like practical like what do you call it? Like it's like a YouTube channel that has like basic things about music, and so I was teaching
Oh, so it's
that.
like teaching master classes, teaching like people lessons about like, well, how can I do a little cheat sheet for this and figure
Yeah.
out get into this kind of groove
Yeah.
or
Well, what I was doing, and actually you can find them. I was just teaching scales. So just,
scales. Hmm.
this is the C
But
scale. This is the D major scale. So it was kind of boring for me, but I'm sure someone gets some good use out of it.
though, like in this space, everybody's always talking about like in music today, like that rock is not the thing, but that's
Mhm,
where your space is rock,
mhm. Yeah.
and So what do you say to people who say, "Well, rock isn't really hitting anymore," based on your audiences? You make a living doing it. So what's your point of view with the way people say, "Well, it's like it's an electronica, it's an
Mhm.
EDM, it's hip hop.
Yeah.
The rock is not happening." What do you say to people who say that?
Well, I don't think rock's ever gonna die. I don't think it's ever gonna go away. I think EDM is popular, and pop music comes from the word popular, right? So what's
Mhm.
popular is something that's not exactly rock. It's more easy listening or more upbeat. I think generally people gravitate towards that anyways because they want to dance, they want to have a good time. Sometimes they want to be in their feelings and listen to blues or something slower, but for the
Yeah.
most part, I think people enjoy the upbeat of things. What happens with rock, though, is we have a lot of this classic rock that will just never go away, like Soundgarden and Led Zeppelin, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of this newer rock is a modernized style of rock that kind of pigeonholes a little bit further, I think.
Mhm.
I think that if all these subgenres of rock kind of disperse more people to them, so
Yeah. You get into
uh
these, like, indie rock, alt rock. You get very,
exactly.
like, narrow focused versions of rock where you get, like,
Yeah.
traditional kinda heavy metal
And
or
then
metal.
we have a lot of outlets now. We used to just have the radio stations. We
Mhm.
just to just have like three radio stations per city, major city that we could go to that might have something that we like on it. Now you have tens of thousands of stations all over the place
Yeah,
that,
these digital satellite stations are
yeah, you
very
can make
honed into very specific genres.
and you can make your own station now.
Yeah,
So,
well, I think the audience, like, to me, is like I like a lot of, like, jazz fusion,
mhm,
experimental music. It's very kind of specific groups of people that they want to see that because they want to see a real band. They don't want to see a guy in a box
mhm,
pushing buttons or a CDJ.
yeah,
Not that that's not cool, but there's something
yeah,
about seeing a bass player, a
mhm,
saxophonist,
mhm,
like somebody on a real keyboard actually playing.
mhm, yeah,
And it's not in the
yeah,
box, it's not just like the same as the master,
mhm.
right?
Yeah.
That's why you go to see a band because you don't expect it to be the same thing you heard on the radio or the same thing
Mhm.
you heard on CD. You expect them to kind of elaborate a little bit, right?
Right, right. Yeah, I get what you're saying. It's like when you listen on the radio or on your phone or whatever, your speakers, you get this kind of mono sound, right? But when you go see a live band, it's just insane
Yeah,
stereo.
like your
You
Marshall
feel
amps
it.
or something or orange amps. You get that sound and like you get the fact that like if you're in that crowd and you're in a smaller room,
Hmm.
like and you get to see like a three-piece band or a
Hmm.
power trio or something, somebody playing like Cream,
Hmm.
you know, like that's
Yeah.
always gonna kick it for me. Is like somebody playing like a Jimi Hendrix Experience or
Yeah.
Cream or playing like a Led Zepp like you guys
Hmm.
do. But
Hmm.
there's something about that style. I'm a Who fanatic, and
Oh
just thinking
yeah.
about like the Keith Moon on the drums is
Yeah.
blasting,
And
right?
Twistle
And
on
then
bass.
and
Yeah.
Twistle just like running these like jazz lines
Yeah.
in it's like a rock punk music with like a
Hmm.
progressive jazz focus. It's like, what's
Hmm.
going on here? That to
Yeah.
me, I saw the Who live twice when
Yeah.
Entwistle was still around, and I was just like so zeroed in on what Entwistle was doing because he
Yeah.
was booming just as much as Pete. Like
Yeah.
he could slam. I
Yeah.
mean, like hitting that bass is like he was hitting like chords, and
Hmm.
like what the heck is he doing? It's like I was just
You're playing it
focusing,
like a lead. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, lead
Yeah.
bass.
Yeah. Yeah.
How
It's
how do
amazing.
you like to play your bass? I mean, what's your
Well,
style?
it's funny you bring up Entwistle because the last several shows I've played with Zepparella, I've had at least one or two people tell me that I play like Entwistle. I mean, I think that play like John Paul Jones in the Zeppelin band,
Yeah,
but
because you're Zeppelin.
I think the sentiment is more the fact that I play it like a lead instrument.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on that fills in the space. So
Yeah,
now with
it's a
Dead
different
Groove,
type of bass
it's
playing, right? Compared to somebody trying to lock in with the drummer. Like,
I mean, you're still very much locked in with the drummer. It's still rhythm, but you're also creating this really beautiful kind of pillow for the leads to sit in. You know,
yeah,
you're dancing around and marrying everything together, and that's one reason I really love playing all the John Paul Jones stuff.
yeah,
A
because his
lot of
bass player
stuff,
is amazing.
yeah, and a lot of newer stuff is very much toned down. In Dead Groove, I don't write any of the bass parts. I kind of let Caesar create the
Right. Oh,
music because I'm already creating the lyrics and the melody. So
hmm.
to keep kind of a balance there, I try to keep Caesar creating, you know, the bass and the guitar parts and whatever he wants underneath his guitar parts. I think probably in the future we'll probably or I will probably start writing my own bass stuff, but
Yeah,
I I
collaborate more.
figured that right now with the first record and the first few songs, maybe we would just let the musician I'm sorry, the guitar player kind of write what he
Right.
wants there.
Hmm.
You know,
When
but
you play it live,
bands,
are you locked into the master when you play live, or do you elaborate a little bit?
yeah, I'm definitely locked into the original recordings for sure. Yeah.
That's cool. So maybe we're gonna give people a little hint of one of the songs, which one I'm gonna figure out which one I want to play first.
Yeah, you
So,
pick.
well, I'm gonna play Ace of Spades because everybody knows that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
to give people this is like a crowd favorite that you play that you finally put on record. So we're gonna actually play it.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I'm at the beginning of it. Let's see.
Okay.
Here we are.
Yeah. This is a little pulled back too.
If you like to gamble, I tell you I'm your man. You win some, lose some, it's all the same to me. Nothing risk to play, make no difference what you say. I don't say you free, the only kind I need is the ace of spades, the ace of spades, yeah.
I just gave a clip because I don't want to get
Yeah, yeah.
banned, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, that gives people a little taste. I don't want to give away the
Yeah,
whole thing, but yeah,
yeah.
that's a known classic. And like you
Hmm.
said, that this is a fan favorite that you play that you finally recorded.
Yeah, it's a fan favorite, and our version is a little bit slowed down. You can tell it has a tiny bit more groove to it.
Yeah.
And then my vocals, I just tried to push them pretty hard to get that, you know, super rock and roll kind of metal tone out.
When you're doing your
So,
vocals, like what kind of to get the technical to get to the people who are really into like the tech of it, but
mhm,
do you do a lot of I don't know, like I don't know what I like to say, but when you process your vocals in terms of how you treat them, the
mhm,
microphone you use, like
mhm,
some of the treatment, can you get into the technical aspects of like what you do with I don't know, processing or
mhm.
like editing or what your style is of doing vocals?
I think we've talked about this before, but Caesar, our guitar player, is actually a vocal coach for The Voice in Peru.
Oh wow,
And so, yeah, so I've got a really awesome vocal coach right there with me, which is one reason that we try to do the vocals down in Peru as well, so that we have
you really
him to
focus
help.
on it. So you spend a lot of
Yeah,
time actually trying to hone them in. So it's like if
exactly.
given an example, like if you're recording like your vocal tracks, how much
Uh,
time would you say that you spend on doing that versus other parts of the song, or does it all get equal treatment?
it gets a pretty equal. We'll spend a day just on the vocals. You know, the first record that we did 10 songs, and I think we spent 3 or 4 days on vocals. This last time we just spent one day on vocals because it was 3 songs.
Hmm.
Um, since we do several cuts of the vocals, you know, I my vocals will they'll, you know, they'll start here and they'll kind of get a little bit more warmed up, but then eventually they start going down because you're overusing your vocal cords, right? And you need
Mhm.
vocal rest. So I try not to do too much. So on a full record, we would spread it out over a few
Spread it out
days.
so you can get optimum vocal performance, so you're
Optimum
not like
vocal performance.
yeah, you're not burning
Absolutely.
yourself out, so you're just, like, raggedy, so you have to wait and, like, go
Yeah.
away. Because I think there's some albums, like, I think Nirvana, like,
Hmm.
Kurt blew out his voice, and he had to, like, walk away for a couple weeks one
Yeah.
time I read about.
Yeah.
They like, boy, he blew it out, and it's like, "Well, we didn't finish." Like, "Well, he's gone. You gotta wait for it to come back."
Uh-huh. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You'll get to the point where your voice just doesn't sound like yourself anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting. So when you do did you do, a lot of overdubs or, like, layering or, like, shadow vocals, or is all just, like it's just you, like, not layered?
Some of it is layered. The boys, they both sing, so we definitely have them in the choruses. But I try not to do too much layering in the verses because I want the record to sound similar to when we play
But you can
live.
do it, you can play, yeah.
Yeah,
That's, like, always the
I
it's always the rub.
yeah, one of my biggest pet peeves is listening to a record and then going and seeing the band live and it sounds nothing like the record. So I like to keep the rawness of it, and just be able to pull it off live.
Yeah, 'cause that's always a problem, like, if you go into, like, using the studio as an instrument, one of
Hmm.
the downsides is you can't recreate that live.
No.
Like, so if you go and spend all your time creating shadow vocals and all these unless you're gonna bring in a big bunch of chorus, like a bunch of
Yeah.
backup singers to, like, back you up to
Yeah.
actually do it, which you probably can't
Yeah.
afford with the most bands today. Back in the
Yeah.
'70s, '80s, maybe you could do that
Yeah.
because it wasn't your dime
Yeah.
to do it, but, like, can you actually come out the door on stage. And I've always been kind of like, oh, I like a Who's Could Do, I like a Replacements, kind of like a Clash.
Hmm.
I like somebody go out there and do it because that's what they're gonna do, right? They're
Yeah.
not gonna try to sugarcoat it or do
Yeah.
more than what it's like these guys. It's them, and I know it's
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely rock and roll. And also you have to be careful if you're in the studio when you overuse your voice because you have to pull that off live, right? And we see
Yeah,
so many of these older guys that have been doing these crazy screamy vocals since the 80s. They can't even sing anymore. I'm not going to
yeah,
name any names, but we all know who they are. And
yeah,
that's because they've ruined their voice because they're trying to pull off something that was insane in the studio. And
yeah. Where they're
now
trying to
they
hit.
can't,
Yeah, how can you hit
they're not
that?
even they're not even hitting the same ballpark anymore.
Yeah, it's always a problem if you go back, and listen to like some of the soul groups.
Hmm.
In terms of like, you being able to hit those falsettos all the time, like,
Hmm.
every night, like, how can
Hmm.
you do that all the it's like, you burn it out because it's like
Yeah.
you can't be at that range and that kind of power or that kind of level of control, like, you gotta give yourself a rest, and then your manager puts you on the
Hmm.
road, it's like, "You're hitting it every night?"
Yeah.
How are you gonna keep on doing that by the end of the
Yeah.
tour? It's like, it's not what it sounded
Yeah.
like on day 1.
No, no, and you do have to be really careful as a vocalist. When you do a tour or you put together a tour, you have to be really careful what the vocalist can handle. When Zepparella has done a 10-day tour before, we had 2 days off in between there because it's not because we didn't want to play those nights, it's because our vocalist needs vocal rest to
Yeah, you
pull
gotta have
off.
time to recover.
Mhm. Exactly. I know bands that have done 6 to 8 days in a row, and the vocalist suffers. And you don't want the vocalist to suffer. That's the main thing that you don't want to suffer. You want those to
That's your
be
brand,
perfect.
it's like, that's what
Yeah,
people
even if the
hear.
yeah, even if the band isn't perfect, like the vocalist needs to be the best.
Yeah,
It's
so
important.
today, with so many tools, you see these bands that go out, right? And they're so in the box with their backing tracks
Hmm.
that they can't really deviate, like, from
Yeah,
the way their song was written, right? So if they play it
yeah.
live, they're kinda locked in,
Hmm. Yeah,
and
yeah,
people kinda maybe expect it to be like that, and you're like,
yeah.
I like to be able to go it's like back in the day, I would go see, like, Parliament Funkadelic, and then they're doing these 20-minute romps, and it's not anything like what was on the record. It's
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
like the Grateful Dead. They used to just go
Yeah.
off these big long things, and I was into that. I was into with
Yeah.
what Zappa was doing.
Yeah.
With the
Yeah.
Muggles,
Yeah.
it's yeah, just go
Hmm.
out there, just I don't know, looser, or even the
Yeah.
Almonds.
Well,
Like the Almonds would be these
even
massive champs.
yeah. Even Zeppelin did that. They didn't play the same song twice, But I think there's still an expectancy these days for if you buy a record, you want the band to sound like the record. If
Mm,
you are a jam band and you do some jams and you are a headliner and you have the time to do that, that's great too. And some people do look for that, and it can be really magical, honestly. Um, but in Dead Groove we use some backing tracks only because Caesar isn't there to sing. So we
oh,
want to
have it.
make sure that we have that, that force behind us. So I'm not used to using backing tracks, but we just use them for choruses and
Mhm.
for when I have to scream a little bit. And
Yeah.
it actually really helps. I'm actually starting to use in-ears now. I wasn't using in-ears before.
Mhm.
And they've really, really helped a lot with my vocals, and just being able to hear myself and hit the notes
Yeah.
properly. It
I've
makes a
done
big
that.
difference. Yeah, it makes a big difference.
Being a one-person band, I mean, I can't, say I don't use it because I use a lot of sequencers, right?
Hmm.
Most of my stuff is analog. So I have a typical sequence, and it's running off of, CV and gate and all this stuff. It's kinda old tech, like '70s
Yeah,
tech, but
yeah.
it still locks me into a structure, but I
Hmm.
can go and mess it up. I can go and
Yeah,
change it.
yeah,
So it will
yeah.
go off a little bit so I can come
Hmm.
back to it. So, use foot pedals and stuff to kick things off. And so it's kinda
Hmm.
like the old, The Who. The Who used to run like Bob O'Reilly on tape. They
Yeah.
had like a tape reel that was running like the synth progression, running
Hmm.
that like what Townsend had created. And then around it, they would still kind of jam and they could keep it, close to what the song was, but it still had that flavor because they were kind of locked in. So I can get you got to give people the signature sound of what that song is, so
Yeah,
people know or could recognize it.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's just a tool. It's not like we use backing tracks for the guitars or for the bass or anything like that. It's literally just a boost during the choruses to give it, a little bit more grit.
Yeah, well, you want to be able to give people that sense of this is the song.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Fulfillment.
Because otherwise, it's like sometimes you can't. Like you have some elements like in the studios where I can do that on stage,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
That I
Yeah,
can actually
actually, when
replicate
we
some of it.
play when
You
we
know.
play the Book of the Dead, we have some thunder in a little bit of a break in the intro, and so we
Mhm.
add that as well. So that's kind of cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to give a example of one of your original songs. I'm going to play. I think The Damned. I'm going to play
The
that one.
damn. Okay, great.
So let's go try that one. Let me rewind it. There we go.
If you wanna fly, better listen to me. All of you know that you can't be free. Better run and hide, leave the scene, or they're gonna take you in and might get me. Spend your time working for the man, but that was never part of the plan. Say I got strong in hand, of the day. Spend your money on rent and bills, save a little for some cheap thrills.
Okay, that's cool. I let that go longer because I wanted to get to it. But,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I love that. I mean, wow, I'm a child of the '70s, so I get where it's coming from. But
Yeah, yeah. I'm not a child of the 70s, but I love 70s music.
yeah, I can tell. I can tell from
Yeah.
your the what you're
Yeah.
putting in there. So, like,
Yeah,
when
for
you
sure.
write these songs, like we'll talk about that '70s vibe, and we
Hmm.
talked about before about your influences. We know like Zeppelin,
Hmm.
but there's other stuff going on there too. So, like,
Yeah.
who are your influences in terms of we talked about it, but this maybe people today don't remember.
Hmm.
We talked a
Sure.
while back.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I, I I grew up listening to Zeppelin and anything that encompasses that classic rock kind of style. I love blues. I'm from the South, so blues is kind of in me. Um, these uh, these melodies just kind of come to me, and they seem to be quite bluesy and quite
Yeah,
just quite catchy. I like a good catchy melody. For the Damned specifically, um, they wanted a lot. Well, like the verse starts with there's no bass, there's just some drums and guitar. So I don't know, my melody just kind of flowed with that. And
yeah,
then it comes into the pre-chorus and the chorus, and then we come back with another verse, but it's higher. So we didn't want to just do this A B thing. We wanted to do like A B C D.
yeah. Make it,
So
yeah, but yeah. You want to make it
yeah.
a little more. Well, today things are so like in the box with electronic type of music
Hmm.
that people forget about bridges.
Yeah,
They don't
exactly.
have the bridge, they don't have, like, the outros, they don't have, like,
Hmm.
breaks, that they're, like,
Yeah.
traditional, like,
Or-
songs from the '70s or even
yeah.
'80s, '60s,
Or even like a
have that
pre
have those structures.
pre-chorus or even a post-chorus. Most
Yeah,
people don't do post-chorus at all.
yeah, or even
So
timing changes or, like, to
mhm.
do something that just shifts it a little bit, to
Yeah.
or have the break or the silence, and people always forget today. Well, I always like, "You guys, like, you're not doing any space between the notes." Like,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
no place where there's a break. It's just so much like a lot of modern stuff. It's just like it's just so much stuff and lots of layers, but nobody's taking advantage of like a little silence here.
Hmm.
Like a little break here, a little
Yeah.
change. Like
Yeah.
you forget about that
Dynamics.
dynamics to kind of
Dynamics.
get
Yeah.
people. You see it in classical music. You like
Hmm.
you bring things in, you bring it down.
Hmm.
You have breaks. You do that. It's like there's a structure, and that's why I like getting into listening to things like that lately, and listening
Hmm.
to a lot of jazz and modal jazz. Is like, yeah, there's all these changes. It's
Hmm.
like all this stuff. And it's like, where's that? You know,
Yeah.
you don't see it.
Yeah. Exactly.
But
Exactly.
also, I
Yeah.
hear a little like Runaways. Joan Jett, Lita
Hmm.
Ford, kind of influence,
Yeah.
kind of like a
Yeah.
female-centered voice kind of
Uh-huh.
band, kind of punk aesthetic,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah,
pre-punk aesthetic.
it's really hard to judge your own music, it's really hard to say, oh yeah, we sound like this, we sound like that. I feel like more people say, oh yeah, you sound like this or that or whatever, and then I'll go back and listen to them. I'm like, I don't think we sound like that at all.
Well, like,
But
people tend to they only have so many, like, female examples. They look, "Oh, like,
mhm.
Heart," that was, like,
Yeah,
L7, or it's like, well, they'll
yeah,
say if they get it more, that's, "Oh, Julianne Hatfield," or say Phyllis Fair. It's like, you get people you can point to, right? 'Cause I have a
yeah.
bigger list of people 'cause I listen to a lot of female artists. But
Hmm.
but, there's, like, people get pigeonholed.
Yeah,
If you're automatic Joan Jett, automatic this,
yeah,
automatic like that, because, like, you're in that space, that's what the only person they
yeah,
know. Or, like, they'll say,
yeah,
"Oh, Steve, you're like Stevie Nicks." It's like, okay,
yeah,
everybody's the lead singer of bands, they're like, "Stevie Nicks?" It's like, "No."
yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah,
but
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I love a lot of female singers. I love Dorothy. I think she's got a
mm,
great rock and roll vibe. Like if I wanted to say we sounded like anything, I would say we sound like her, but I don't know, some people might not think that.
that's a
Uh but
cool way to think about
yeah, she's super rock and roll. And she's got that kind of bluesy melody thing going too, I think.
it. Yeah,
But
we kinda like
we
that Janis Joplin kinda thing going,
mhm.
they go old way back. It's just like
Yeah,
people
yeah.
really kind of putting it out and kind of
Hmm.
being out there.
Yeah,
They had, like, in the late '60s, you got
strong.
this vibe,
Yeah,
Janice
strong
is out there.
vocals and
Yeah,
Grace
just be
Slick.
yeah, great slick, yeah, that kinda thing is like getting out there in front of Jefferson Airplane, like, yeah,
Hmm.
or the
Yeah, yeah,
starships
yeah.
with the airplane. Yeah, that's what I'm into.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's exciting actually. Get a female with very powerful voice is very exciting. Um but yeah, this song, The Damned, I wrote it as far as the lyrics go. I mean, it's kind of open to interpretation. It's definitely about, having to work for the man, you know, that kind of
Hmm.
thing. But I think you can kind of just, think of whatever you want. It could be about politics, it could be about money, it could be about working, it could be about, relationships, whatever. But yeah.
Because once you write
So,
as a songwriter, once you put it out the door, like you had
mhm.
your original intent, but
Yeah.
then the fans start to interpret it, and they kind of end up owning how
Yeah,
how how they view it. But
exactly.
then you still
And
have your interpretation. You hear a fan saying, "Oh, I think it means this," and you're like, "Oh, I didn't think
yeah,
that," but that's fine.
yeah,
It's like that's just
yeah,
how they see it.
yeah. If that's what they want to grasp onto, that's totally cool.
So when you like all these songs that you put together for this
Mhm,
EP, and we've
mhm.
done two of them, was there a certain like feel that you wanted them all to be in a certain feel? They're all they from the
Yeah,
session. Did they all come from like the same session, or did different
yeah,
sessions
yeah. They
in
came from
terms of
the
timeline?
Yeah, they came from the same thing. We were in Peru, I think, for 10 days or something, and so we took a day to write Fire. We took a day to write The Damned. Um, we took a day for drums, a day for guitar, a day for bass, and a day for vocals. And so we were in the studio quite a bit that week. But we wanted a more polished version of what we had.
Hmm.
Like this record, the one that we talked about last time, has 10
Hmm.
songs, and those were written over quite a long time. Actually, we took several months to write those songs and polish them, and then when we finally got together to play them, we were just basically rehearsing, and then we played a show. And these were songs that were written and uh, uh, kind of came together over like online. Basically, we weren't together, but this
Hmm.
time when we went back to Peru, we wanted to write together.
Yeah,
So we
yeah, it's a
took
different dynamic.
Exactly. It's a little bit of a different dynamic when you get in the same room writing with people. Um, the only problem that I have when I get together to write is that my melodies don't typically come uh, straight away if I have to stop. So I have to go and listen, and then the melody comes and the lyrics come, and then I can present it. And I typically don't want to change it too much. So um,
Hmm.
it's not that I want full control over it. It's just that this is my biggest, this is my idea. This is what I really want to go
Yeah,
with. So I don't really tell, you know, Fred what to do with the drums or Caesar what to do with the guitars. I just want to make sure that I feel comfortable with the melodies because I have to sing them and I
but
have
you
to
own
play
them. Yeah, you
bass.
say
Yeah.
so. You have a vested interest in how you're conveying what you want to
Yeah.
give up, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
and so I don't like to compromise too much of like what I've already come up with. But if
Mhm.
there's something that doesn't really fit, then of course we'll change it. But there's been
You know
songs
what you
that
want.
yeah, exactly. There's been songs where I wish we could have done something different, but we didn't, and it still bothers me. You know what I mean? So,
Mhm.
so I'd rather just have full control over the lyrics and the melodies and just leave it at that.
Well, I think it's good to know where you want to be, where you stand. Because like
Yeah,
if you're blowing with the wind, it's like, well, I don't know, and then the other people will take charge.
full
Like
advantage of that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. If you go in and you have a bunch of, I deal with people like they got like 10 producers
Yeah,
working on the record,
exactly.
and they're sending them
Yeah,
every which way, and it's like it's
yeah.
not their vision, right?
Hmm.
Versus if you have a smaller independent band that don't have a bunch of, they have one producer, and it's still your work, right?
Hmm.
They're
Yeah,
trying to take your work and make it the best piece of work, but they're not going in and trying to stamp it as their production sound.
yeah.
You run to some producers, and it's like they want everybody to have their stamp as it's like their trademark.
Yeah,
and they're putting it on you.
exactly.
It's not really you.
Exactly. Yeah, you end up like kind of going down a path of something that's not really yours.
Yeah,
I don't, the last thing I want is a producer to come in and say, okay, well, sing your chorus like this and sing your verse like this. And it's like, well, that's not, now I have nothing invested in the song.
yeah. It's
You
not
know,
your
like
song. It's like
it's not my
like
song
yours.
anymore. It's your song.
Yeah, because
Why
they're
don't you
just
go
trying to
make up
create
your
these.
song?
Yeah, they just create this whole catalog of hits that got the signature style, and that's fine for them because they're
Yeah,
building up their canon, but it's not really you.
yeah,
You know,
exactly.
so it's like unless you're going to them, sometimes Dylan would go to a experimental producer. He'd go to you know um, somebody and do something that wasn't typical folk music.
Hmm.
He'd go off and work with the like Brian Eno
Yeah,
or something, and that's not typical Dylan, right? That's not folk
right.
rock. That's it's going into this experimental Berlin thing. But
Hmm.
he chose to do that because he wanted to see what would Dylan sound like that. How would
Yeah,
Dylan sound if he wants to be in that frame? You're like,
yeah,
okay, that's cool.
yeah. And I think once I put out like 10 records, maybe that'll happen. But at this point, I kind of want, full
You want your
control over
signature.
my create. Yeah, exactly. And as you can see through all of the songs that we've made in Dead Groove, there's definitely a signature from me in there. And that's important, I think, because it's the three of us working on this. It's not the three of us plus a producer or plus somebody else. It's just us, and we're
Yeah.
bringing the best that we can bring to the table.
Look, and you're playing because you guys have like your voice. You know
Hmm.
what you want to do. You're in Zepparella, you're doing something there. You're in your
Hmm.
Soundgarden band doing that stuff because
Hmm.
that's what you're feeling. You're feeling
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
But when
yeah.
you have like your own thing, it's like
Hmm.
this is where I want to have the space for my vision as an artist. As like I
Yeah,
want to bring the world Dead Groove Band, which is not
yeah,
your band or that band. It's
yeah.
Dead Groove
It's
Band.
this thing.
It's your idea.
Exactly, exactly.
And that's a cool place to be because like some people don't feel like they've got permission,
Hmm.
a permission structure to be themselves.
Hmm.
And I've
Yeah,
always been a big purveyor of the independent emerging artist or the person, singer songwriter. Because I like it when I hear somebody that wrote the song or somebody
yeah,
that's invested in the song. It's like their piece of work. That their
yeah,
band came up with it, right? That it's
yeah.
not some guy from Tin Pan Alley. Not that that's
Hmm.
not good. There's a whole
Yeah.
genre. The stuff came from Tin Pan Alley, and that's cool.
Hmm.
But I always go for the singer songwriter or the band that has original concepts because that to me is like that's their their novel, their piece of
Yeah,
work
exactly.
to the
Yeah, and
world.
it's nice when you hear a band, you're like, oh, I know what band that is.
Yeah.
Like I was showing some songs to Fred from Jackal, the band Jackal.
Mhm.
And I love Jackal, and he wasn't too familiar, so I showed him like three or four songs, and you can tell it's Jackal. You can tell
Yeah.
it's that
It's
band,
that
and
band.
that's what's so great about it is, I mean, they do definitely have influence from all these other bands. I mean, you can tell there's definitely some AC/DC in there and stuff,
Oh, yeah.
but it's Jackal, and it's really cool. And same thing with Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Um,
Zeppelin has that signature
you you
bottom
know,
page,
fun, yeah.
you know.
Funny story. When I was in Dallas, when I still lived in Dallas, I was doing something, and I was listening to the radio or some station, and Greta Van Fleet came on,
Mhm.
and I
Oh,
thought it
yeah.
was Zeppelin, and I thought I was
They
tripping,
channel it.
and I
They
thought
channel it.
I've I've heard every Zeppelin song. I'm quite familiar. What song is this? And I looked, and it's a totally different band. I'm like, what? And so
But
I
they've been
did a deep
accused of,
dive.
like, channeling it a little too much, but,
Yeah,
that
right. And you can do that too, if you start saying, well, this is my influence and this is what I want to sound like. It's like, well, then you're not really yourself, right?
yeah.
I'm not saying Greta Van Fleet isn't a great band. I really do
No, they're
like their
good band.
music. I really do like their music, obviously, because it sounds just like Zeppelin. But, I think they've got a great thing going.
Well,
But I,
you go where the audience is, and there's a whole a bunch of people that know that Zepp sound, right?
Yeah.
So, and everybody
Yeah.
knows like all the Beatle clones
Mhm.
because everybody like wants that sound. So everybody
Yeah.
got in the 70s, hey, how many bands are channeling the Beatles?
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
that's a known thing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But it's like,
I
go
I
ahead.
had I had a brief conversation with BB King's son-in-law once, and he said that the best advice that he gave him was, good artists listen, but great artists really listen.
Hmm.
So a lot of them are kind of regurgitating a lot of these things, that they've heard before. They know it works, so they just kind of put their spin on it.
That's what I
But
liked about, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, but I think that there's something about creating a new sound that's really exciting,
Yeah, that's
and
why I like the idea that you're playing the Soundgarden because Soundgarden is a really interesting band in terms of it's a grunge band,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
But they sound like Zeppelin, but they don't sound like Zeppelin.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
they
it's
could
like
they
the
Bad Motor Finger channels
uh-huh.
Zeppelin, but it doesn't
Oh yeah.
sound like Zeppelin.
Yeah, it's just a
And I can see why you could be into it given the
yeah.
space you're in because they found a way to not do it like Greta Van Fleet, which is
Uh-huh.
like fine. They do it, and that's a place to be. But the way Chris Cornell and those guys did it,
Yeah.
it's like I felt it when I heard that stuff because I'm
Uh-huh.
back in the day. I remember hearing it, and I heard. And I was into Nirvana, I was into Pearl Jam.
Hmm.
But I said Soundgarden is kind of like they're actually going with the '70s. Like
It's like
they're
the
they're pulling
yeah.
from like Zepp, but they're in the
Yeah.
grunge space, but they're actually pulling like
Yeah.
big arena rock, but
Yeah. And
they're in this
also
grunge.
I think that was they do drop D tuning on a lot of their songs, and they also have C tune, or was it drop C tuning and stuff like that. So their tuning's a little bit different. It makes it a little heavier. But they've got a lot of the same kind of things going on as Zeppelin does for sure. That's like the Zeppelin of the 90s, I guess.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
grunge, what I've noticed playing these songs is that I feel like, since I've been playing in Zeppelin so much, I'm very much on top of the beat. And
mhm,
grunge just pulled back a little bit. So I've had to kind of readjust my
you
playing to
adjust it
kind
when
of
you're in that space.
sit back into the beat a little bit, which is, I mean, it's not hard for me because I've been playing for so long, but it's like I had to like learn that going into these rehearsals, going, okay, let's just take it a little
That's kinda good
slightly
for you
this
though
way.
to do something a little different because it keeps you
Yeah,
on your game,
yeah,
right? It's like,
yeah,
if you're always
absolutely.
just doing the same thing, it's
Hmm.
kinda like, why like, if you think about, like, what happened, like, with bebop jazz to go into fusion or modal,
Hmm.
right? When Miles Davis did that, people were, like, shocked. It's like, "How can you go from this standard to that?" Right? Because
Yeah,
eventually, like, you might not wanna just stay doing bebop, right? Because, like, he's, like, the king of bebop, right? He's the
yeah,
king of that. He
yeah,
could just stay in that, but he's like,
yeah.
you get bored. Like, you wanna try something, go off a little bit different where it's a different talent, it's a different focus. You're gonna
Hmm.
do different, like, you're gonna be in different, like modal music is totally different place than
Uh-huh.
what the bebop was doing.
Yeah.
And so it just makes you go and find different skill sets, and like that's where you might want to be.
Yeah, yeah, you always should be learning as a musician, because there's so much to learn. Uh, I heard a long time ago, guitar is the easiest instrument to pick up, but the hardest to master,
Yeah,
and it really is. I mean, just music in general, like you can start playing pretty quickly if you just know one, three chords. I mean,
mhm,
most great songs are just three chords and the truth, right?
yeah,
So you can automatically start playing any instrument, but to master it takes a really long time.
yeah. When
And
you start to learn how to shade the colors, like you start playing with like the Beatle chords, where you start playing
exactly.
with like progressive rock, you start doing,
Hmm.
something where the timing changes. You
Yeah,
got start playing with
yeah,
polyrhythmic stuff, and you're doing with
yeah.
different tunings, and it's not obvious,
Yeah,
right?
and that's kind of what this Soundgarden has taught me as well, because there definitely are some timing things in there that are not for They're not, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's, you got to count to 6 and to 8, or 6 and to 5, and all these different, different
Yeah, I think
countings.
sometimes the complexity of what people go into is because they don't want to do the typical, and
Yeah.
it just was whatever. Sometimes it serves the song. You're like when if you're writing some songs, it's like yeah, it serves the song maybe to have a clash structure. It's like I'm gonna do it because I'm gonna be Joe Strummer, and
Mhm.
it's about being honest and pure and not caring if I'm a perfect pitch. I'm just trying to get out the message. And
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be raw and now and feel like urgent.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Otherwise you get a guy who's like, well, you get a Pink Floyd, you know, yes, and they're
Yeah.
obsessing about every note and they're trying to do that's okay. That's what
Mhm.
that song serves that song. Like
Yeah,
it's just where
absolutely.
you're coming from.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we have, as musicians, we have the tools, and it's our creativity that makes us unique. So, that's the thing about being creative is you have to have the tools and the rules to break them.
Yeah, yeah.
And
You can't be like a Hendrixian, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make feedback this the thing. Because feedback was
yeah,
the thing.
yeah,
And then suddenly
exactly.
he's there like on the board telling engineers, don't get
Yeah.
rid of it. You
Yeah,
know,
people
keep it.
people were really scared of Hendrix when he started coming out and playing these insane riffs, and just the way he played guitar. I think it was, I can't remember who exactly it was. I think it was maybe one of the Beatles, or it was Eric Clapton
I think
that
Clapton
called
was scared of
somebody.
him.
Yeah, I think Clapton called somebody and said, "We're in trouble."
Yeah, we're all doomed. I think even Townsend said Clapton called him and he said, "We're
That's
doomed."
it. That's
Something
it.
like
That
that.
was it. It was Clapton called Townsend. He was like, "Dude, we're in big trouble here."
We're in trouble. This guy's pulling feedback out by demand and
Yeah,
hit it
it's
with sounds
amazing.
he wants to hit. It's
But
not
the
an
guy couldn't
accident.
even tune his guitar.
Yeah.
Isn't that
Uh,
crazy? He
yeah.
didn't even know how to tune his guitar.
But he just found things, he just could find it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's just like, you don't know when you're
He
gonna
had the
run into that.
spirit. He had the
Yeah, we're
spirit
just
for sure.
feeling it, comparing the Cherokee thing. I don't know. He always talked about that. But
Yeah.
let me get to like the last song to give an example, which I think is Fire, right? We didn't
Yeah,
play that.
Fire. It's very Hendrixy. You mind if I show the album real quick?
Yeah, yeah. Go do that. Show it.
Um, so this is the new EP. It's on. We only have it on limited vinyl.
Oh,
It's
awesome.
called Rubicon, and this is the Death Flower. On the back, we have some eyes and swirly things, and then our picture. And then on the inside, we have just the information about the EP and where we recorded it and who recorded it for us. We've kind of stuck with the same theme where we have the spaceship, right?
Oh, cool.
And then this
Yeah.
spaceship has the death flower on it. And then
Awesome.
on the back, we have the lyrics for the two original songs. And the EP itself is clear vinyl, which is really
Oh,
cool.
that's awesome. Say
So
that's
this
why
is,
people. I think that's real important what you're doing there is
yeah.
because with the digital age, people like I'm a child of the '70s. When I went to get a
Mhm.
record, I go to Strawberries. I actually get the record,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And there was
Yeah.
something about having, and I was buying stuff on
The
vinyl.
arts. Yeah.
Yeah, there was something about having that artwork. And if you go back to the original Led Zeppelin albums, you know it. It's like
Yeah.
getting those Zeppelin albums. It's like there was all this artwork. There's all those,
Yeah.
pinwheels and all kinds of these extra.
Mm.
That was
Yep.
part of the experience. Just sitting in the
Yep.
basement listening to the record, and you
Hmm.
weren't skipping around. Usually, you listen to side A, side
Yep.
B.
It
You
was
listen to
like,
the whole
yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And to me, that the deeper tracks tells me who an artist is. And
Yeah. Exactly.
today we have these kids. It's like all they listen to are singles on playlist, and they don't know
Hmm.
who the artist really is, other than the
Yeah.
single. And that
Yeah.
single may not even represent the entire catalog
Mm-mm.
or vision of that artist.
No. No. Yeah. Yeah. We have the two original on the front, and then we have the Ace of Spades on the back.
Well, that's awesome. I love
So
that clear vinyl. That's a really cool
yeah,
thing.
it's
I think a
pretty
lot of people
cool.
want.
We were gonna go with splatter, but since we only did 200 physical copies, we ended up going with the clear.
Well, that's
But
awesome.
this was designed by Fred, our drummer, who
He's
designed
a
the first
designer
one.
too.
Well, he's actually the art director for Cleopatra Records.
Oh,
So
cool.
so he's actually designed hundreds and hundreds of vinyls and CDs and
He knows
stuff.
his thing.
So
He knows his
yeah,
stuff.
he definitely knows his stuff.
So we're gonna try Fire Out now.
And this song is about Fred, actually.
Oh wow.
Where you go, I just wanna follow you. Doesn't matter where you come from, I wanna set the fire in you. Yeah, wanna follow you. Fire, know you want it to. Yeah, set the fire in you. Fire, set the fire in you.
Wow. Sorry, I didn't play the whole thing, but that's what we were
Yeah, no
doing to keep on
worries.
getting banned. But um, that's cool. I mean, I like
Yeah,
the feeling. There's a lot
thank
of
you.
stuff I feel there that I like the Hendrixian feel,
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah.
and even like Ian Astbury from like the Cult.
Yeah, the cult. Actually, that's the second time I've heard that. Yeah, definitely. Um, you know, it's funny because I wasn't even thinking about the cult when I did the melody for that. They the guys, Caesar and Fred, kind of wanted me to do a chorus with really long, drawn out vowels, and so
Mhm.
that's kind of what I came up with. But that chorus, when I came up with it, it kind of reminded me of one of my favorite bands called 2200. They
Mm.
have a couple of songs that have those kind of cool vocals like that, and so that's probably somewhere in my mind. I kind of picked up
Yeah, well,
their
that's the thing
melody in
happens.
there.
Like every musician is a fan that
Yes,
got them
absolutely.
into it. Like the reason you're
Yeah,
into it because you were inspired, and
yeah,
your subconscious pulls stuff in. Like
yeah,
I'm at
absolutely.
the piano, I might pull something from a Coltrane thing, and I'm gonna because I was listening to it, I might not
Hmm.
even know I was doing it, and somebody say,
Yeah,
"Hey, why'd you do that?" And I'm like, "I didn't even know
yeah,
I was doing it. I just did it."
yeah. I just like it.
It just comes out of there. It's like whatever. It's like could be a show tune pops into my
Exactly.
thing, and I do a little piece, and the boom, it pops up. It's like what?
Exactly.
What? That was in my. It was just in my head. It came out on
Exactly.
my fingers at my piano. It's like
Yeah.
sometimes things just come out,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then you kind of channel it. It's like wherever you are, like
Hmm.
you're in that moment, and whenever you're putting it down on tape or doing something hits you, and you're like, hey, it's good, it's not good, right? You make a choice. It's
Yeah.
like you take, and a lot of times as you get older, do you find that you take the things that you kind of feel
Hmm.
rather than think out? Because sometimes you could write and you could be
Yes.
like writing it on the paper and planning it out, and then
Constantly.
when you
Yeah.
go to do it, and then it's like, hey, what I planned out is not as good as what I just kind of did.
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually a really good point. My first record that I put out was Mokita. And I spent 2 weeks writing lyrics for that and kind of coming up with some melodies here and there. And I wrote the music for that record. So I just kind of had to marry the two, together with whatever lyrics I came up with in that 2 weeks. I wrote the first parts of about 30 songs because I wanted to have enough to draw from. And
Hmm.
then, five of those or four of those actually made it to the record. So um, now it's different. It's whatever I feel on the spot. The first record that we did, the full length record, I had some time to think about stuff. With the Rubicon, though, I didn't have a lot of time. It was just whatever came out on the spot. So each of the records I've put out with my my thing has been a little different. So
That's cool.
um, now it's more just what I feel on the spot and what's going to come out.
I think that's people find out you get to that place whenever it's going to happen for you. But I
Mhm.
run into like a lot of like I've actually talked to authors that
Mhm.
they build worlds, like fantasy authors, and
Yeah.
they build these worlds, and they have all these things planned out, and then suddenly they get into this kind of this, they go into a flow state, and it's like, oh, this flow state thing is so much better than what I planned out. I'm going to drop that and move that over here and use
Yeah.
that. And so even
Yeah.
though they're very much into building these very intricate
Mhm.
fantasy worlds like Tolkien, Hobbit
Yeah.
world things, they still go and say, hey, sometimes that in the moment feel
Mhm.
this brings some like I don't know vulnerability, it brings some it feels like it doesn't feel forced. It feels authentic.
Yeah,
That's why
authentic,
people like.
organic. Absolutely, yeah. And you don't want to push too hard when you're trying to be creative, because if you push too hard, you can kind of fall out of the box. I often talk about like when I was recording some stuff at home when I was doing my first songs that I ever did. Um, I would get them to where they were great, and I was able to, or I was wanting to go in the studio, record them how they were, but I would go get drunk and then come home and like mess with them, and then I'd listen to them the next day and they were all messed up, and I'm like, wait a second, that's not right. So I had to stop drinking and working on my songs.
Well, I think that they can happen where I was here listening to Owen John, and he was saying like back in the day when he did Yellow Book Road, everything
Mhm.
was like third, fourth take. He said
Yeah,
everything today, you wish it was like that because
yeah,
he's like they would get it in 3 or 4 takes and they let it go,
yeah.
and they know they could do another version,
Hmm.
but it would be a different song, right?
Yeah,
And so at some
exactly.
point you have to like accept what it is. Neil Young, Crazy Horse, a
Yep,
lot of bands, Zappa, they all had this mind that that's the way they used to record. And then a lot of times
absolutely.
today, people, either they embrace that or they go into this perfection method,
Hmm.
inside their DAW, and
Hmm.
they spend all their time trying to get everything antiseptic. And it's like, well, I don't even want
Yeah,
that. By the time I
yeah,
hear it, it's like,
exactly.
what do I want that for?
Exactly. Yeah, and I do kind of tell that same sort of thing to the guys, don't think about it too much. Just put it out. Whatever we're going to put out is what we're going to put out. This is going to be Dead Groove, the three of us, what we have. Cred's an incredible drummer. Really puts a lot of melody into his playing, which is fantastic. Caesar is an amazing guitar player and riff maker, and then I have my melody and vocals
Yeah, your
to make.
delivery is, like, right
Yeah,
on
my
point. You got that
delivery.
70s, like, vibe, and you've
Yeah,
got
yeah,
that, like,
yeah. And that's our fingerprint.
rocker. Yeah,
The three of us, our identities is our fingerprint. And
rock
I think it's really
elevation.
important. Yeah, I think it's just important to play off of that, not think too hard.
Well, I
Just rock
think
and roll.
overthinking can wreck you, if
Yeah.
you you get into stuff, it's like you overthink it and you get too much, because it's like being a piano player, like, I could go and overthink it and start trying to
Hmm.
do all this intricate stuff, and it goes into, like, classical. It's like, well, I was trying
Yeah.
to funk. The
Yeah.
funk it really didn't. I was like, do I wanna make it, like, classical or is it supposed to be funk? It's like funk
Yeah.
is a feeling, right? It's a thing. It's like,
Hmm.
it's like a James Brown, Bootsy Collins, George Clinton
Yep.
thing. It's like
Yep.
you don't overthink it, you just do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But, yeah, this has been a great, talking to you again, and you got a new
Yeah.
record. When's it come out?
It's on the 21st, but you can get it
21st.
now on cleorex.com.
Awesome. That's awesome.
And we do have a
So
show if you're in the West Hollywood area. We have a show at the Whiskey on the 23rd with King's X, which
awesome.
is also one of our biggest influences. So
Dang, that's a
um,
cool band.
I
How'd you
love
get
that
that
band.
gig?
Yeah.
How'd you get that gig?
Well, we actually live in West Hollywood, right next to the whiskey now, so we're familiar with the booking agent there.
That's cool.
But yeah, we bought an opening slot, as you do with the at the whiskey, and so we are using that as our EP release party.
Well, that's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
you gotta pull it in. You gotta
Yeah,
take
exactly.
advantage of what
And
you can
actually,
get out there.
when I released Mokita, my first show, fronting my own band, was opening for King's X on my birthday in Dallas. And so this is going to be a full circle.
Full
And
circle. That's cool.
actually I'm friends with Doug now, so it's going to be really cool.
That's very cool. Well, it's cool.
Yeah.
They're friends, and then you
Yeah.
actually get that vibe, and you're in that space, and the whiskey. You know,
Yeah.
that's just awesome.
It's going to be great. Yeah, we're excited about it.
Yeah. It's like I'm just I'm very very happy for you guys. That's really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, and always feel free to come back anytime you guys got a
Yeah.
record.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
I love talking to musicians. It's my first love. I talk to a lot of people now, but talking to artists and musicians specifically is who I really love all of to talk to. I like to talk to everybody, but musicians is I think they deserve a space, and that's why I keep this space open for musicians to be here. But thank you again for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm glad that your podcast is doing so well.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you.